Good morning. This is Peggy Barry Bartz with another episode of You're Kind of a Big Deal. The point of the show is that we're all a big deal. And this morning I'm thrilled to have the studio manager of ONTV, Joe Johnson, who's usually behind the camera,
That's right,
in front of the camera today. So this is really exciting for me. And we're going to talk about the law of attraction and science and physics and real magic. And so I'm going to start with a humdinger question.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe, if I had to describe you in one word, or you had to describe yourself in one word, what would that word be?
Yeah, I put a lot of thought into that, and when I take into consideration my career, doing news and things like that, I've dabbled in stand-up comedy. I describe myself as a storyteller. I love telling stories, not only my own stories, but other people's stories. That's the essence of my nature, I guess.
Okay, well, I'm Irish, and that means I have Celtic roots, and we are storytellers to the max. We make stories last a really long time. We tell goofy stories, we tell sad stories. And so we're going to start with a story. So the story is, we were recording another show, and you came in and started talking, and another show happened.
That's right.
That was the story of how this happened. So I want you to start with one of your favorite stories of what it is we're talking about today, which is when you project into the world something that you really love, want to do, it happens. And
Right.
it's not crazy. It happens to people all the time. And people are afraid to talk about it because they think someone's going to think they're odd, but more and more people are talking about this.
Yeah, and I was the same way. A friend of mine who's been reading a lot of books about self-improvement and all this stuff, for years he was saying, you got to check out this thing called The Secret. And I was like, that's a bunch of hocus pocus nonsense. And he kept telling me, you gotta check out The Secret. And other people started telling me this. I said, all right, fine. So I went to a store and I found The Secret DVD documentary. That was the first thing that came out. I found it on sale for like $5. So all right, if I waste $5, it's only $5.
So this was after it came out because $5 means it was on sale.
Yeah. So the Secret came out in 2006. It was followed by a book, and people swear by it. Oprah swears by it. A lot of people swear by it. So I went into it skeptical. So
I have to stop you one for a second. The religious communities, we're called religious communities, they were all over, no, this is all bunk. So just want to point that out.
and we'll talk more about that in a second.
Yes.
So I take the DVD home, I pop it in, I fully expected to watch it for a few minutes and roll my eyes and turn it off, but I got hooked, and I watched the entire thing, and I went back to my friend and I said, I think that DVD changed my life, because a lot of the stuff the DVD talked about were things I had already been doing, but the one thing the DVD pointed out to me is that there was something I have been doing that I shouldn't be doing, and that is dwelling on the negative. My whole life, I would say, oh, everything bad happens to me, or I'd say I'd have a cloud over my head, or I'm on a bad luck streak. And when you project that, and when you say that, you make it happen. And so if you say everything bad happens to me, everything bad does happen to you. So the DVD taught me to stop thinking like that, to stop being negative, dwelling on the negativity. And it changed my life. And so since then, I've been trying to focus on the positive and visualize positive outcomes, and I'm seeing results. And so now I try to tell everybody that'll listen to me, focus on the positive, you'll get positive returns, eliminate the negative. And unfortunately, eliminating the negative may include eliminating the toxic people in your life, because that was having a big effect on me. There were people in my life who would make me feel bad about myself or cause drama and stress in my life, and I would keep giving them chance after chance after chance, and then finally I said, why am I doing this to myself? And I found that as I started to eliminate toxic people in my life got better. I started to feel better about myself. Better things were happening to me, so now I just dwell on the positive. That's all I focus on. I immerse myself in music that I love, and food that tastes good, and family and friends that lift me up as opposed to dragging me down. And I can't believe the results it's had.
I believe truly, and there's time for everything. Things happen, and when it's time for people to leave your life, somehow they magically do that.
And I kind of equated, I came up with this analogy where I said it's like sandbags in a hot air balloon. Sometimes you have to cut some sandbags off and your hot air balloon rises. So that's kind of how I look at it.
I love that. Okay, I want to hear a story.
All right.
Yes.
So here's a story. I have so many to choose from, but
Pick one.
here's a story that I heard
two.
recently that kind of ties in with what we were talking about. A friend of mine just told me this story, and I told her I have to share this with the world. So a good friend of mine, Donna, who got me into video production, we were in LA recently, and I asked her, I said, weren't you in Hawaii when they had that missile crisis? Do you remember this?
Oh, yes.
So she was in Hawaii with her family when they got the alert that these missiles were coming in and life as we know it was going to come to an end, at least in Hawaii. And everyone there believed it. They all got texts and alerts that said, this is not a drill, missiles are coming in. She said people were crying and panicking and trying to come to terms with the fact that life was ending. And she said she was at a hotel with her family. They were sitting in the lobby. Everyone was panicking. And she said to her kids, had I known that, this was the end, I wish I could go out with one last good cup of coffee, she said. And her kids kind of looked at her like, really? That's what you want? She's like, yeah, I would love to have one last good cup of coffee. So she's sitting there with her kids, waiting for the missiles to hit, when a waiter or an employee of the hotel walked up with a hot cup of coffee and handed it to her. And she told me that, and I got goosebumps because everybody thought they were going to die, including this waiter.
Right.
But what did he do with his last moments on Earth? He overheard her saying that she could really go for a cup of coffee. And in his last moments that he thought was on Earth, he went and got her a cup of coffee.
Oh, my gosh.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh.
I think that's an amazing story. And so...
Oh, my goodness. Yes, and we forget, we heard it on the news, but those people really thought this was the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Jim Carrey, the actor, he was in Hawaii, and he posted on Twitter that he said, well, this is it. These are my last few minutes on Earth. And luckily that wasn't the case. But those people in Hawaii thought they were going to die, and I thought it was amazing that this employee of this hotel could have been with friends or family or whatever, decides, I'll give her last wish and give her a hot cup of coffee. I thought that was pretty amazing.
That is an amazing story.
Yeah.
You can never underestimate the power of caring.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
And vocalizing and and expressing what will make you happy, and somehow the universe finds a way to manifest that. I have another story that I shared with you a couple of weeks ago, but
I want to hear it again.
All right, so again, I was in LA with my friend Donna. Well, prior to that, I'm a big fan of the actor Burt Reynolds. I grew up with his movies. Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run, all of his. He was the biggest star in the world in the 70s and 80s. And about a year or so ago, I heard that he was going to be doing a really rare signing, an appearance in Pittsburgh, which would have been a little bit of a drive for me, but I'm like, this
5 hours.
Right, and I'm like, this might be my last chance to see Burt Reynolds, because he's 82 now.
Okay.
So I tried to get some friends to go, finally nailed down one friend who was a big fan too. We were going to get some collectibles, go out there, try to get him to sign them. And like a day or two before we were planning our road trip, it all fell apart. My friend backed out, and everything fell apart, and it didn't happen. And I was pretty devastated. I'm like, wow, this might be my last chance. And I thought, you know what, it'll happen. I'm not going to think about how it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. And so about a month ago.
Back to the manifesting.
Yep.
You already knew inside that no matter what, this was going to happen.
Yeah, didn't know how. I just convinced myself it was going to happen.
But this is already after your reading of all this material,
Exactly.
knowing positive vibrations or whatever you want to call them. Maybe that song "Good Vibrations" from the Beach,
Right,
from
exactly.
the Beach Boys had a lot more meaning than everyone thought.
I agree with
yes.
that.
Okay,
so about a month, less than a month ago, I get a text from my friend Donna out of the blue, and she says, "Are you a fan of Burt Reynolds?" And I said, "Yes, I am. Why?" She said that a former student of hers is a Hollywood producer, and he produced Burt Reynolds' new movie called The Last Movie Star. And I'm like, okay. She says, how'd you like to go to his premiere in Hollywood? And so this was with about 2 weeks notice before the actual premiere. So I really had to scramble to adjust my schedule and everything. And so we got cheap airfare and found a place to stay. We fly out to Hollywood. We're at this premiere, and we get to see Burt Reynolds and Chevy Chase and other actors that were in the movie. And I thought, well, it can't get any better than this. But then the producer says, oh no, we're going to the VIP party afterward. So we go to the VIP party. There's Burt Reynolds sitting on this sofa, just meeting and greeting everybody there. And on the chance, and this is how convinced I was that this was going to happen, I brought with me a Smokey and the Bandit die-cast car. And so when it was my turn to go up and meet Burt Reynolds, I shook his hand, told him what a big fan I was, pulled out the die-cast car, handed him a Sharpie. He signed it, gave it back to me, and could not have been nicer. So I just thought that was just an amazing story, that I knew it was going to happen to the point where I brought the die-cast car with me, and sure enough, it manifested. And it was just such a great moment, such a great memory for me. And I'm just really grateful for the whole thing. And that's a big part of this law of attraction, is they really stress gratitude. Be grateful for what you have. Be grateful for the opportunities that come your way, for the family and friends that you surround yourself with. The more grateful you are, the more things will happen. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're grateful all the time.
I am. I'm grateful for my career. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my friends that I keep close to me. Grateful for the car that I drive. I just, that's my philosophy in life right now, is to be grateful for what I have. So.
That's awesome. So what do you say to somebody who is struggling with, continued difficulties in life?
It depends. I mean, I try to remind people that this whole law of attraction thing isn't a genie lamp that you rub and make wishes and they come true. It's more to it than that. But I encourage people to try to find the positive in everything. Like I use this example. I might walk out of my apartment, walk out to my car and see a flat tire. But instead of saying, oh no, this ruins my day, I think to myself, well, it didn't happen on the freeway. It didn't happen in the middle of a blizzard. So I try to find the positive in everything. So that's one thing I would urge people to do, is look for the positive in your situation.
Even if it looks like a negative.
Yeah, and I'm sure you could agree with this. How many times does something bad happen to you when a year or two goes by, you look back and you realize it was a positive?
Oh, I have
happens all the time.
Stories. I could write a book about that. And it finally hit me. Stop looking at a situation as if it's really terrible, because there's parts that you don't know.
Yep.
And the part you don't know is like the magic.
Yeah.
And I just told you this morning about a scientist named Dean Radin, who I've actually got to see speak. And he wrote a book called Real Magic. And from a scientific study point of view, has proven, and has laureate scientists that understand his work, that these things really do happen. Mm-hmm. And through all cultures, science is only a couple hundred years old. People started figuring out why things happen. And I just heard about Leonardo da Vinci this morning. Mm-hmm. He was amazing. He just was curious about everything all the time. So he just would wake up in the morning and wonder why butterflies come out of cocoons. Mm-hmm. And so he'd figure things out. And the helicopter that he wrote and invented long before was for a play, to get somebody up in a thing. So he drew a helicopter. He was never done being curious. Yeah. I find the older I get, the more I want to know about everything.
And I feel like we're all connected. I tell people all the time, we all came from the same star stuff. A star exploded.
Yes, we did.
And so we all share a common energy and an origin. And I find that if I come up with an idea, if I don't act on it right away, other people come up with the same idea. And it's the person who has the connections and the means to make it happen are the ones that benefit from it. But I see that happen all the time. So we're all connected and we're all linked. And, you talked about the vibrations and the energy. I think when you tap into that, you start to notice like really bizarre coincidences and stuff. Like one time I met a woman through an online dating app, and we met at a restaurant here in Lake Orion, and then we ended up going back to my place. And as we drove up to my apartment at the time, she said, I used to live in this exact same apartment. Wow. And I said, did you have cats? And she said, yeah. And I said, because I complained to the management that the apartment smelled like cats. So this connection that we have, I discovered these really bizarre coincidences. What do they mean? I don't know, because it didn't work out between us and we ended up going apart. But when you're on this certain vibration, weird things start happening and you start noticing really weird coincidences.
And you know, I think that down the road, we're going to start figuring out, and Dean Redden talks about that there's this invisible, I don't want to go, well, an invisible matrix, how's that? That we can't see, but we know it exists. I always tell people when I talk about intuition, I used to say, I can't put intuition on a resume. Now I can, because we've come to the point in life where I could say, you know what, I just had this intuitive hunch about something, and I was right, and I don't even think about it anymore. And more people, well, it's your gut feeling. It's the inner side of you that just knows things that reason and science necessarily don't know. And I've been reading about noetic science, which is a different way of knowing things. Dean Redden talks about he would tune his instrument, he would see colors instead of hearing.
Oh,
he
I've
would
heard
see
that,
the colors.
yeah.
So we have no idea how people process information, but it's all the same information. It's just how you receive it, almost like a radio.
Yeah.
So
now I have a theory about intuition and psychic ability and everything, and this I
wanna
kind
hear
of
it.
came up with this after learning about the law of attraction and everything. Is a psychic able to predict the future, or is a psychic in a way causing the future to happen? That, like, I remember one time my sister had a psychic party, and a woman sat down with the psychic, and for some strange reason the psychic told her that her marriage wasn't going to work out. Well, the marriage didn't work out, but you have to question now, did the psychic make a prediction, or did the psychic plant a seed that caused a chain of events that had convinced the woman that the marriage wasn't going to work out? So I always wonder about that. Does a psychic somehow, using the energy or vibration or whatever, cause results to happen? So that's just kind of a theory that I have. Same thing with intuition. If I have an intuition that something's going to happen and it does happen, did I cause it to happen? I don't know.
that's a really great question. Psychics normally, who actually really have abilities, don't say things like that to people. I just want to tell you. By the way, your marriage isn't going to work. Because you know what? They did really plant a seed in her.
Exactly.
And that's really terrible.
Yeah. But like, here's something that's kind of neat. About a year ago, almost to the day, my sisters follow the like 3-digit lottery, 4-digit lottery. And they sent me a text about a year ago and said, hey, our mother's birthday came up on the 3-digit. It was 417. And then a few days later, I get another text saying that my birthday came up on the 3-digit, 826.
Which we share a birthday.
And we share a birthday, yes.
So
see, there's another one of those coincidences.
826.
So then a few days later, my sister's birthday came up, March 29th, 329. So I have another sister whose birthday is May 7th. So I texted my sister after my other sister's birthday came up, and I said, I guess it's your turn. Your birthday's going to come up. We're going to have to play it. And she's like, oh, I don't know about that. Well, the next day I happened to find myself at Kroger, and I cashed in some bottles and stuff, and the woman behind the counter, she's cashing out my receipt. She says, what do you want? You want cash? And I said, no, you know what? Give me 507 straight in box for tonight's drawing. Well, I get home from work that night, I look up the lottery results, 507 came up straight, and I won almost $600. Oh my gosh. And now the question is, did I predict it or did I cause it? That's the debate right there, but that was an amazing coincidence that my mother's birthday, my birthday, and my two sisters' birthday all came out within the span of a week. That's
Maybe we should go play
crazy.
826 today.
Yeah, I know. So play
Let's
those
find out if
hunches.
that happens.
Play those intuitions. Don't ignore when your gut is telling you something. Don't ignore it. You got to follow up on it.
There is absolute evidence that there is, I just showed you this morning, thought. Intuition is more powerful than we thought. We can tap into the power of intention. And thoughts are things. We can sense others' emotions and intentions from a distance.
one example, and I'm sure this is something you can relate to, but have you ever like been in a crowded restaurant and somebody across the restaurant catches your eye and their head is down and you look at them for a second and they turn and look right at you? Like at that exact same moment, like there's that weird connection across the room. I really think there's something to that. I really think it's that energy that connects us and binds us. I sound like a character in Star Wars, but I do believe in that. I think we're all connected by this energy.
I think that people who wrote Star Wars understand that same thing, and they get to make these amazing movies that talk about those situations and put it into a story. Oh yeah, it's all a story, because the stories are what happens. There have been famous storytellers through history. People wrote on cave walls to tell stories because that's how we relate to each other.
Right.
The story is the magic, and there's this big book full of stories that everybody knows about. The story is not literal always. The stories are the way pointer to the reality behind the situation.
And since you brought that up, and early in our conversation you mentioned this when you said that some religious people think this law of attraction is a bunch of nonsense, and I disagree with that. In my opinion, the law of attraction is religion, it's luck, it's karma, whatever you want to call it. To me, it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. There's good and there's bad, and whatever you choose to focus on will manifest. And so, to me, the law of attraction is God. It is karma. It is luck. It's all of these things. It's what you perceive it to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I need another story. You told me a great story when we were together just recently.
Well, another thing about knowing something is going to happen, but you don't know how it's going to happen.
Yes,
back in 2017, last year, I decided I wanted to go back to LA, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to have the resources. I had a friend who hadn't been to LA in a long time, and I'm like, I wish you could come along. Well, both him and I are involved in a TV program called Comics, Beer, and Sci-Fi. We both have segments on the show.
Comics,
Beer, and Sci-Fi.
Is this like Star Trek stuff?
Part of it, yeah, and it airs on the CW50 and all that stuff. So,
very fun.
So both him and I were talking about, how can we make it to LA with our limited resources and everything. And the guy who produces the show, Comics, Beer, and Sci-Fi, he calls a big staff meeting, and we all get together, and he says, I'm looking for people who want to go to LA. I'm buying the plane ticket. You have to find a place to stay. And I was like, that's incredible. So both me and my friend are like, we'll go. And as it would happen, a friend of mine who moved out there a few years ago bought a new house that has a guest house. She said, the guest house is yours at no charge. So, like I said, I had focused on getting out to LA, didn't know how it was going to happen, and just let it happen. And everything fell into place. We had an amazing week in LA. And again, I talk about these really weird coincidences. My buddy and I, we were in our rental car driving around LA, beautiful sunny day, and he turns on LL Cool J. He's playing it out of his phone. There's a song, Mama Said Knock You Out. We had the windows rolled down. We're singing along to this song. Well, the next day, I take him to Paramount Studios to do the tour. And as we're going around the cart on Paramount Studios, the lot, we pull up to these trailers, and who walks out of the trailer? LL Cool J.
No way.
They were filming NCIS on the Paramount lot. And my buddy and I looked at each other, and we were like, I can't even believe that we were singing along to a song just the day before. And I called out his name. He turned, he flashed that smile that he's famous for. And I just couldn't believe it. And those are the kind of coincidences I witness all the time.
That is an awesome story. And the picture that we are sitting in front of, tell us about this beautiful scenery.
This is my happy place. That is Leo Carrillo State Beach in California, in Malibu. I stumbled onto it a few years ago as a filming location. It's where they film scenes from the original Karate Kid. I found out when I was visiting there that they also filmed some scenes for the movie Grease, which was one of my favorites as a kid, and also some scenes for Fast and Furious and all kinds of stuff.
I love those movies.
Yeah, so it became sort of a favorite spot of mine mind. So this picture that is behind us, I took that on the last day I was in LA in 2015. Went up on this bluff that overlooked the beach and watched the sunset and took some pictures, and it's just my happy place. It's LA and California. It's where I go to make myself happy, and really that's the lesson to be learned from this whole conversation we've had here today. Is my advice to you is to surround yourself with what makes you happy. For me, it's music, it's food, it's people, it's travel. I love visiting new places I've never been, but I also love going to LA whenever I can. And then I drive my dream car, and that's another story where
what's your
I
dream
ended
car?
up. I have a
Is it the
Mustang
same
convertible.
thing, Smokey and the Bandit?
No, not quite, but I do know a guy that owns one of those. But no, I have my dream car had always been a Mustang. I just always worshipped people who had Mustangs, and I always had a series of crappy cars that would always break down. And I said to my coworker Tessa, I said, my dream car is a Mustang, and she's like, well, as it just so happens, my stepfather works at Skelnick Ford. Well, I get a text from him saying, come by my office. So I show up at his office. It was 4th of July a couple years ago, and parked in front of his office is this Mustang convertible, 2007. And so I go up, I'm like, what do you got? And he goes, didn't you see it? You just walked past it. And I said, what, the Mustang convertible? He says, yeah. And I said, I don't know if I can do that. And he pointed to the sticker. We looked at the car. He said, go get your title from your previous car, which I hated. And I drove off the lot in my dream car, a Mustang convertible GT V8. And talk about happiness. Just driving that car makes me happy.
Oh my goodness! And how was the timeline between you when you told Tessa?
Just maybe a couple of months, if that. It might have been shorter than that. But like I said, you want to vocalize to the universe what you want, and the universe somehow makes it happen. I can't explain it. You say there's a science behind it. I'm willing to be open to that. But I've found in my personal experiences, if you vocalize what you want and what makes you happy, the universe will make that happen.
Thoughts are things.
I agree.
So you had a thought, I want to drive a Mustang. You actually spoke it out loud. I think the value of speaking things out loud.
I
A
agree.
Lamborghini would be a really nice thing.
Well, like I said, it's not a genie lamp that
I
you can
know.
rub and make
That
a
was a
wish.
joke.
But I do believe that you can manifest things with your thoughts and with your mind. And you can't make somebody fall in love with you, but
That was in Aladdin. The
Right.
genie said, you get 3 wishes.
Exactly.
I can't make anybody fall in love with you. That's
Right.
a completely different thing.
Exactly.
But that's an energy also.
Right.
And that has to be a matching energy between you and the other person. And that is one of the easiest ways to explain this whole process.
Right.
When you explain to people about intuition, and a lot of people talk about when someone gives you the hair on the back of your neck stands up, and you know something is like not right with this person, they give you that feeling, and everyone says, oh yeah, I know what that feels like. That is the part that's unexplainable. And then you say, but by the same token, you also know when there's an energy between 2 people,
Right.
and you can feel that, and you want to spend more time with that
yeah.
person.
And this kind of is in that direction a little bit. People are attracted to people who are happy and confident and exude that. If you walk around feeling sorry for yourself and depressed all the time, that's not very attractive to other people. So if you surround yourself with things that make you happy and you exude happiness, that's going to be attractive to other people.
And I think we have probably used up every minute available to us telling stories. Thank you so
My
much,
pleasure.
Joe.
I'm
It
glad
was
to be able to
awesome.
talk about it. Spread the word. That's what it's all about.
Spread the word. I agree completely. Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Okay.